Hi, I'm Ryan Hendrix,
And I'm Kari Zweber Palmer.
and we're going to be talking with you about the social thinking vocabulary. The next concept we'll talk about as part of the bigger social thinking vocabulary is the concept of thinking with your eyes. So, you've already heard a little bit about thoughts and feelings and a little bit about a group plan. But the way that you start to figure out the plan of the group, what people are thinking about, how they may be feeling, is really relies on this next concept of thinking with your eyes. And this concept really gets at the heart of social observation. The reality is everything that we do in the social world is driven by what we're noticing, what we're observing, the information that we're gathering about what's happening around us, and really combining that with what's happening internally, how we're thinking, how we may be feeling about something, our previous knowledge and experiences. So, this is where that social thinking vocabulary tries to make something abstract into something very explicit. It's not looking, it's thinking. And thinking with our eyes really makes explicit that we're going to both look and think, that the brain is involved. Because when you think with your eyes, you're engaging in an active process that helps you determine what other people are thinking, how they're feeling. And that's the information that then fuels a person's own response. Once you've gathered that information, now you have options and choices. So it's more than just looking, that thinking is involved. We can break this down further and think about kind of receptively. We use our eyes to gather information about what other people are thinking about and what's happening around us, and start to try to get that info that helps us figure out what somebody's motives and plan and intention might be. So that's in terms of using our eyes to help us gather that information, to take it in, to make the connection in our own mind, to fuel the whole rest of the social information process. Expressively, in terms of what we can do with our eyes, we might use our eyes to show other people what we are thinking about. So the reality is that people do look to and notice where people are looking to try and figure out what somebody might be thinking about. It's that way that we make that connection between each other and a mutual idea or a shared object that's in the space. We look to see where somebody else is looking. So it's important that we make that information explicit. So much of talking about these concepts is really taking something, again, that may not be explicitly discussed and then turning it into a conversation. Again, having that shared language to talk about these abstract ideas. So, especially as this concept was being developed, it really came from this place of trying to support people to have a greater awareness that they could gather important information based on where somebody was looking. That idea that where someone is looking gives information about what they might be thinking about. So, this concept kind of supports that process of gathering information and then having a greater awareness to know that, hey, people may also be noticing what you're looking at to try and get information about what you're thinking about, how you're feeling, and again, what your intentions and plans might be. What this might sound like if we're thinking about, again, all these different contexts. So I'll start with a classroom example. A teacher might support students as they enter that classroom space, and as they've already become familiar with the concept of thinking with their eyes, might use that language and say, all right, class, I want you to think with your eyes. And hearing that language, oh yeah, that internally, the goal is that our social learners would think like, oh yeah, I need to look around, I need to notice. And again, this isn't just look, it's also think about it. So, what do I notice? And do I see any important clues or any important information in this context that's going to help me figure out what's happening here? What's the situation? What's the plan of the group? What are my options and choices within it? If we're thinking about examples then out in the community as we're approaching the park, perhaps, hey, let's think with our eyes. Let's notice what's going on around us, because it's only when we have that information that we can see what our options and choices are. Or if we're at home and a parent might use this language to say, all right, hey, come on in. If we go back to this example of maybe we're making a transition from one plan to another during the day. Hey, I want you to think with your eyes and notice, what do you think our plan is going to be next? Or, maybe there needs to be some additional support with picking up some items and returning them to their rightful places at home. Hey, come on into this space. I just want you to think with your eyes, see if there's anything here that needs to be picked up. Again, the options for using this vocabulary are really limitless. So many options and choices. It really depends on the context, but it all goes back to that idea of using this language to activate the thinking like, oh, there's important information around me that could really help me. So I want to be, I can hear that language or think about that and then actively observe to then figure out what to do next.